You know that Keeley Companies is all about fostering the world-class culture through their incredible cultural pillars. Well, it was time to add a seventh cultural pillar, Keeley Green. Guided by the mission to raise the sustainability standards by which they design, build, operate, and live, Keeley Green is dedicated to using a holistic approach to leave a positive impact on our environment, create a future that is sustainable for generations to come. In the words of Rusty Keeley, we are just getting started. You can learn more about that just getting started mentality and all the work they do by visiting my friends at Keeley Companies online at KeeleyCompanies.com.
Welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. John is the two-time national best-selling author of On Fire and In Awe. He's a world-class inspirational speaker, the host of the Live Inspired podcast, and he's the real-life inspiration behind the major motion picture Soul on Fire. Each week, John interviews extraordinary individuals about their life stories so you can more fully live your life story. Here's your host, John O'Leary.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. Our guest today's name is Willow Weston. May not be a name you recognize on the front side of the podcast, my friends, but it's a story you will never forget on the back end. Here we go. Willow is an author, a speaker, founder of Collide. It's a ministry impacting women nationwide through honest conversations about pain, about faith, and about healing. Drawn from decades of mentoring and her own deeply personal story, Willow invites us to stop running from our wounds and begin facing them with courage, hope, and optimism. Today, Wilson joins me to share how a childhood marked by trauma led to an unexpected calling, why avoiding pain keeps us stuck in cycles we do not yet understand, and how healing begins when we choose to face our wounds instead of hiding from them. Family, friends, leaders, if you've ever felt stuck in the past, unsure of your purpose, or weary about carrying the pain forward, this conversation will be for you. You will leave today reminded that your story is not something to hide from. It's something that can be embraced, elevated, and redeemed. So grab your favorite Live Inspired journal, pull yourself a little bit closer to the sound device you're tuning into, and get ready to be inspired by my friend, now yours, Willow Weston. Willow, welcome to Live Inspired with John O'Leary.
Thank you for having me. I'm already inspired, man.
So am I, and I had a blast chatting with you before I officially did my job, and you and I beautified to prepare ourselves for this podcast. But for those today who are meeting you for the very first time, if you had to introduce yourself, what do you say?
My favorite thing is to sit across from somebody and get to know them and listen to their story and then share a bit about mine and have that experience. But today, yeah, who am I? I mean, on the basics, I'm a wife. I've been married almost 30 years to my husband, Rob. I have 2 adult kids, so we just became empty nesters. We have a 23-year-old son named Aiden and a 20-year-old daughter named Bella. And I have accidentally become the founder director of a ministry called Collide that's been going on for about 12-ish years. And I speak and have a podcast and just came out with a book.
So when people hear that, they probably either run away from you because it sounds like a ministry. That word's already kind of scary. And so either they're going to quickly move into a different conversation or they're going to fill their drink up a little bit more and say, tell me more. And so I filled my drink up. It's to the very brim right now. So I'm going to do the following. Tell me more. Let's start with Collide. Tell me more about Collide, this ministry that began a little bit more than a decade ago.
Yeah, I didn't set out to start a ministry. I was a stay-at-home mom when I had my 2 little kids. I had just had Bella. I think she was around 1 year old and hanging out, being a mom. And my mom moved to town. I hadn't lived with her. I had to find a place to live when I was 15 years old. So I hadn't lived with my mom since I was 15. Here I was like 30 something. And I get a knock on my door and I look through the peephole and it's my mother. And she's showing up on your average Wednesday trying to be super grandma. And I flipped out. I saw her face and it was like, all the childhood pain that I'd experienced with her, the neglect and addiction and abandonment and abuse, all the stuff, I just freaked out. I took Bella and I ran upstairs and I hid in a closet, and I had this profound spiritual experience where, I mean, the only way I can really explain it is like God said, "Hey, Willow, there's healing that needs to be done in your life, and you need to step out of this closet and you need to get help, or you're going to hurt your baby."
Mm.
And that led to finding me in a therapy office where the therapist was trying to give me advice. And I don't even remember much of what she said, but I had another spiritual experience in that room where I had this realization that I was born into wounds, that I collided with wounds. I collided with my mother's wounds, and she wounded me, and now I might wound Bella, and I need healing. And so I was just in this desperate place of so wanting healing. And I paid that lady her $85 and left. And I walked to my car and I heard, "You're going to do something with those two words, wounded collision." And I wasn't looking to do anything because I felt a bit of a mess. And
Yeah.
the next week or two, a college girl asked me to mentor her. And I said, "Do you want to look at the life of Jesus running into wounded people and how he brings about healing in their lives? Because I need healing. If you want to do that, I can do that. Otherwise, I'm not in the best place right now in my life." And she was like, "Yeah." And so she showed up at my door and she had 25 friends. And I spent years in my living room hanging out with those college age girls, and we started experiencing healing in places in our life that needed it most. And that just turned into this whole other thing that is now this ministry. But that's why I say it was an accident. I wasn't looking to start something.
It's okay. I mean, to me, that's the best way to start a thing when you weren't expecting it. You weren't,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't feel prepared for it, but you were bold enough to say yes when the college girls said, "Hey, I need help," even if you didn't
Yeah.
feel like you were the one to give it. So I want to talk more about maybe why you felt you weren't the one to give it and ultimately why you've become the one to at least help provide it. So we're going to go back a little bit farther than this young mom trying to raise these kids and hang on for marriage and hang
Mm-hmm.
on for dear life. Go back a little bit farther. You talked about this growing up in a home that was not really safe. There was addiction, there
Mm-hmm.
was neglect, there was some abuse. What was your childhood like?
Yeah. It's crazy because I had an amazing mom. She was wild and whimsical and intelligent and strong, and she owned her own business. She bought an old brothel, actually, and she turned it into a place that has become famous, actually. If you ever saw the show Northern Exposure, it's a show that has a bit of a cult following from the 90s, but the building that is in the beginning of that show, the Roslyn Cafe, my mom opened that, and we lived upstairs in this cafe, and people from Seattle would travel over. It was in the Seattle's best places to eat, and just kind of this hippie hub place that, like, it was just cool. Like, I think the first vegans ate there. They didn't know they were vegans, but like they came for my mom's food. And she created jazz nights and belly dancer nights. And so I grew up in this really cool experience where, with all diverse people showing up to this place. I mean, you had tree huggers eating with rednecks, and Democrats eating with Republicans, and old people with young people, and yuppies with hippies. And that was my living room. We lived
Yeah.
upstairs, and my mom was cool, and my mom loved me a lot. But my mom also was a terrible alcoholic. And she would party sometimes for days at a time, sometimes 3 days at a time. The stuff that she'd drag into our house, the things I went through at night, the stuff with the men that she brought home. We experienced domestic violence and abandonment, and a lot of stuff where it was just expected that I wasn't supposed to talk about it.
Yeah.
I wasn't supposed to tell, and I didn't tell. But then things started happening. Like, the school principal in 5th grade called me in, and I walk in there, and the counselor's in there, and they said, "People are calling concerned about what's going on in your house, and you're going to have to start seeing a counselor every Friday, but don't tell home about the counselor," which is absolutely crazy because
Yeah.
now in today's day and age, a school would never do that. But at the time, that's kind of what happened. And I was made to go to this counselor, and I totally lied about home to the counselor. I kind of did us all the favor and was like, I know the things that are going on are okay, but I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to get my mom in trouble and I don't want to lose my mom. And so I just had all of these experiences as a kid where I was just in survival mode.
Yeah.
I experienced trauma that no kid should experience, with my mom running into telephone poles and me having to clean her blood up, and her driving over cliffs and showing up to school events drunk and all the stuff. My dad was absent and kind of started showing up when I was about 8 years old on occasion, and I got to visit him a little bit, but he was preoccupied with his life. And so by the time I was 15, another family from across the state took me in. And I remember moving in with them, and I didn't unpack my boxes, and I didn't try to meet friends at this new school. And I thought, oh, I had heard when an alcoholic hits rock bottom, they'll stop drinking. And my mom just lost her only kid, so I'm sure she's going to stop drinking. And so I'm just going to be here just for a short period of time. Then I can go back to my friends and my family and my sports teams and all that, and my pets and my room and my town that I love. And my mom never stopped drinking. So by the time I hit college, I was a wreck and starting to mess with my own life and hurt other people. And that's when I really came to a place when I was around 21 years old, where I found myself in a hotel room one night, and I really just didn't want to be here anymore. And I remember calling out to the walls and just saying, like, I had never been in church, never heard about Jesus. I didn't know what the cross was about, but I just was like, God, if you are real, like if you're actually real, come and help me, because I need help. I need rescue. I'm not okay. And that kind of was sort of this turnaround moment for me, where I started to consider that there could be someone bigger than me. There could be a reason why I have the story I have. There could be a reason why I'm here. And I started to see that reason all over the place.
Wow. We said a lot, and we could spend the next hour and a half unpacking any of it. And folks can learn more about your story, of course, by checking out your book, Collide. I'm curious though on two fronts. Number one is your mother, it seems like, was not only agnostic, but maybe actively sort of against faith. So
Mm-hmm.
you were curious in that hotel room in your early 20s about, like, if there is something out there, God, if you exist, how I need you. So I'm curious, where did that seeking even come from? Like, where did you even get an idea? Like, maybe there is something. Who knows? I'm curious about
Mm-hmm.
that. And secondly, and then what happened? So you
Mm-hmm.
asked this question from a position of complete isolation and desperation. Well, what happened
Mm-hmm.
next?
My parents were pretty educated, and they both sort of mocked Christians and thought they were really narrow-minded. And I think that's still sort of what a lot of people think right now about Christians. And so I adopted that mindset and had no respect for Christians. In fact, in college, I used to throw the Bibles back at the Gideons when they tried to hand them to me on campus. To be like super frank with you, one night I hooked up with a guy in college, and he showed up to my dorm the next day, and he was crying and felt terrible about what we did the night before. And when he apologized to me, he handed me a Bible. And that's how I got my first Bible. And I call him Schmuckface Bible Boy, because, like, who does that? Like, you don't have sex with a girl and hand them a Bible and then keep wanting to have sex with them. But that was my first Bible. And I remember putting it on a shelf and being like, I'm not going to read that. There's no freaking way. And then when I found myself a few years down the road so desperate, that hotel room truly was disparity. I think people can get to a place in life where you call out to someone bigger than you because you recognize that, like, you can't, in your own in your own power or lack thereof, you can't rescue yourself. Like you have nothing else. I wasn't speaking to my dad. My mom had moved to Hawaii. She was across the country and I hadn't lived with her since I was 15. I had no one else.
Yeah.
And I was falling apart. And so that desperate cry for God is, I mean, obviously hard in the moment, but I look back and I don't know, I get kind of choked up thinking about it because I think it's something that we all need to get to, of this recognition that like there's someone bigger than us and he made us, and we're here for a reason. When we can get locked into our creator, that's when everything can shift for us. And so for me, there were so many things that happened, but soon after that, I needed a place to live in a quick hurry. And this woman named Cindy let me move into her basement apartment. And she told me I could move in, but I can't party and I can't have sex. And I thought, I've never heard of anything more archaic in my entire life. Like, this will be very temporary. I will be here for a month. And she just loved on me. She loved the heck out of me. She'd invite me up to have dinner with her family, to give me coffee. She started inviting me to share my story. And I hadn't shared my story before. I hadn't told people the stuff I went through as a kid. And her inviting my story out of me helped me realize I have one. And as I started to share my story, it felt like God was like slowly stitching me up. At the same time, I recognized I need therapy, and my therapist was a Christian. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're everywhere. My coworkers were Christian. My dog was probably Christian. I don't know. I was like, how did I get around all these Christians? Because I never liked them before and didn't give them the time of day. But I think God was just around every corner trying to get a hold of my life. And then I had this moment with Cindy and some of her friends where, after 2 years of seeking him, and I had opened up that Bible that Muckface Bible Boy gave me, and I read, like, in the beginning, everything was so beautiful and we're supposed to enjoy it and it was wonderful. And then people's fathers were angry and their anger hurt their sons and their sons hurt their wives and everything was a bloody mess. And I just was like, oh, wow. And I closed it. And then a little while later, with Cindy's inspiration, I started opening up again and I started to see, like, oh, wow. I mean, he turns water into wine and he hangs out with outcasts and he eats with sinners and tax collectors. That sounds like the Roslyn Cafe. That sounds like my people, And I thought, if this Savior loves my people, like, I might just love him back. And so, in a room with Cindy and her friends, one of the women asked, what are you waiting for as far as my faith? And I said, nothing. I remember I just lifted my hands up and I handed God my life that day, my past, my pain, my present, my dreams, all of it. But I left that place and I ran like a scary religious monster was chasing me. And I thought, I'm never going back into a church again. And the next week, my coworker told me about her church and I drove there. And I remember sitting in my car, and I think this was probably my first real prayer outside of that hotel room. And I said, God, if this is where you want me, help me to know. And I walked into this church and I filled out this communication card. And the reason why I tell you that is the next week, I was checking groceries. That was my college job. And there was this woman behind me. I'm like, can I help you? And she said in a British voice, well, I knew you when you were a little girl and I need to talk to you. And I was like, I've never seen this lady in my life. And so I meet her for coffee the next week. And she said, when you were a little girl in the streets of Roslyn, I lived there. And I used to see you playing. And God told me that you were hurting and you were going to hurt more. And he told me to pray for you. And she said, I prayed for you all these years. And here you are. You walked into my church across the state like 15 years later, and you handed your life to Christ. And I'm the lady in charge of the communication cards. And she said, I saw your name and I thought, there can't be another one. This has to be her. And so she came finding me. And I just started bawling because my biggest hang up all growing up with the idea of a God is, well, where were you?
Yeah.
Where were you when I was going through hell? You didn't show up for me. You're just like my dad. You're just a big no-show, God. And I started to see through this lady that God had been trying to get a hold of me since I was a little girl, but there was so much pain and dysfunction and wounds that he had to break through. And he finally found me and I found him, and it was a beautiful thing.
Mm, gosh, there's so much there. So let's talk about that moment when people, because I'm sure you've shared that before in conferences and when, podcasts, and I'm sure some listeners are thinking, yeah, right. Like there's no way that's a legit story. To the people who are challenging you on some of the little lowercase miracles and larger capital miracles in your life, what do you say right now to the people who are like, there's no way like this story is going to unfold the way it seems like it's heading?
Yeah, I honestly, I don't feel like I've had people challenge my own experience. I mean, I guess bring it on, but that's one of the things that I find really beautiful about how we can all have spiritual conversations, regardless of where we're at, regardless of what we believe or who we believe in. If you tell me your story and your experience, all I get to do is listen and go, wow, that's so interesting. If you start arguing with me about how
Yeah.
you're right and I'm wrong, it's really ineffective. But I mean, this is my story. This is my experience. It's all I got. And
Well,
I haven't really had a lot of people go, well, that's not real. I suppose I could give them Pam Moore's phone number, who is probably at this point about 86 years old, and they could talk to this woman in her beautiful British accent, and
isn't
she
that the
could
best?
say, this is real.
That is the best. So, speaking of Pam, what's the thing you think right now that women, because I know you speak and work a lot with women
Mhm.
directly, what are they longing for that they are not receiving right now in the world? What's that ache on their hearts that right now the world isn't filling for them?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of women long to feel purposed. I think they want to feel like I was given this life and I'm here for a reason. And I think we have a strong sense of like really wanting to feel like we're doing great things, that we're a part of amazing things. And honestly, I think we feel that way because we're made to do amazing things. But what happens is that we get hurt in life and we start to question our contribution. We start to question what we're capable of. And so we do a lot of like, not me, like, oh no, I'm not cool enough. I don't have a cool enough story, or I don't have the right set of giftings, or I need to go out and get a new personality or new body or whatever. And I need to be like Jenny or Christy or Sally. And I think God's like, no, you don't need to be like any of these other people. I actually want to use your life to do amazing things and impact this world and make it a better place. And so instead of spending so much time saying, not me, not me, not me, I think God's like, yes, you, yes, you, yes, you know?
I do know. And I'm curious, what do you think it is that keeps men and women from bringing all their hurt and all their pain to God? I feel like a lot of us
Mhm.
endure the thing as a kid, as a young person, things that happened to us or things we did to others or ourselves, and then we bury it and move on. Why bury it? And what is the freedom found when you unearth it and hand it over to the author of life?
I have a chapter in my book called Taught. And I say that because I think a huge issue with why we still have unresolved pain in our life that's coming out sideways and hurting our people that we love is because we were taught to avoid pain. Like, look what we do, dude. We put a band-aid on our kids and we're like, stop crying. And we expect them to stop crying. And they try to like, their lips are quivering. They're like, I have to stop crying because my parent just told me that I have a band-aid on my knee now, so it doesn't hurt anymore. Or we say, pray, you have God, you're good. And so we kind of put spiritual platitudes on it, like, hey, like you should be good if you're with God. Or we say, be strong. We're taught to sweep things under the rug. Like, oh no, like this is something we don't talk about. We just move on. And what I've found in my own life and with people I work with is that we don't actually move on. We move with our pain into next week, into next month, into the next decade, some people 40 decades later. And because we haven't experienced true healing, we've been taught to avoid pain, but that's actually the problem. And that's the premise I make in our book is, in order to experience the healing you long for, you're going to have to actually do the thing you don't want to, and you're going to have to run towards your pain with God, and it'll be there that he will bring about the healing that you truly want in your life. But you can't keep avoiding it because it's not going anywhere.
Right. But you've also acknowledged in the book that both we struggle for first bringing the hurt, but secondly, we also struggle believing that God will run toward us in that hurt. So help me and help us work through that. How do we rectify that when we don't want to bring the hurt forward and we don't believe that God is the type of God who wants to run toward us in the midst of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we have a broken view of God that needs healing, because if you think about it, we have this idea that we sort of have to clean up our mess before we come to God. We have to get ourselves together. We have to deal with stuff before we can come to him. But when I look at God and Jesus, I see a God who is on an absolute, like, he's on pain patrol, man. He is running out and chasing people down who are hurting. Like, the guy is going and touching lepers that no one else will touch. He's stops for the woman who's hemorrhaging for 12 years, touching the guy with the shriveled hand. He goes and meets the woman at the well who's been with man after man after man. I mean, Jesus is literally showing us, I not only can handle pain, I'm going out and I'm looking for it. I want to enter it. And when I enter your pain and we name pain, because you can't actually heal a pain you can't name. When we enter your pain and we become aware together of your brokenness and your hurt and your mess, it's there when I can enter it that I can bring about healing. That's the God I see. I mean, you talked about Jesus on a cross. I don't know why Christians think God can't handle our stuff when he literally has it wiped all over himself on the cross.
Wow. You, my friend, hid in a closet when a doting grandmother came over to bring a little cheer to your daughter. That's where you, at one point in your life, found yourself. Many of us inherit wounds that are generational. How does wrestling with that and bringing those types of hurts forward not only free us from that wound, if you will, but also those that we love, and what are we equipped to do better than us going forward?
My grandma was an alcoholic. She died when I was 2 from alcoholism. She passed that down to my mom. My mom was an alcoholic. My mom hurt me. By the time I was in college, I was in hospital, I had alcohol poisoning. I was driving drunk. I was sleeping around drunk. I was like, this looks really familiar. And I think people, if we get really real with ourselves, and it doesn't matter, and it doesn't have to be that dramatic, it's like your dad's anger invited you to deal with things in the same way. Now you get angry, and that anger is coming out on your kids. I think we have to wake up and recognize that unresolved pain coming out sideways is hurting the people that we actually love the most.
Wild.
And we can keep hurting them.
Yeah.
Sitting in a closet hiding with my baby was like, oh, wow. You're going to actually wreck your kid's life, bro. You sitting in a closet because you can't answer a door. If I would have walked out of that closet and not told my husband, not gone to therapy, I don't actually know where my daughter would be today. And instead, my daughter's killing it. Like, I don't mean she's perfect, because none of our kids are perfect. Neither are we. But she's not needing to go to therapy. She's not in the hospital with alcohol poisoning. She's not sleeping around to find worth in herself. She's actually out chasing people in pain and helping them. So that's because I had to say yes to healing. And I think every single day we get to wake up and go, yes, God, more healing, more wholeness, more health, because I want to bring my best self to the people I love. So I actually inspire them rather than harm them.
Yeah. In answering the question, you used the word healing probably 3 or 4 different times. Healing, it seems to me, very rarely happens on your own. So
Mhm.
what role does community and vulnerability have in healing?
This will kind of answer your question, but before I fully answer it, I think we do two things with healing. We think I have to heal me or God has to heal me. And I think that's not true. If I have to heal me, that means I have to somehow come up with some power and some some
Yeah.
abilities that I don't actually have. But I think the idea that, oh, God has to heal me, like I'm going to wake up on a Wednesday and all my childhood pain and the way that it triggers me is going to be gone. Put myself on a prayer chain and I'm going to be the miracle everyone prayed for. I don't think that's true either. I think we have a God who says, I want you to participate in the healing you long for in your life. Don't pray and say, I want to be healthier in 2027 and then not show up to the gym and keep eating platefuls and nachos and Ben and Jerry pints every night and drinking gin and tonics
Well,
to
that's
wash
hitting
it
a little
down.
too close for home. So yeah, let's not talk about that right now.
Yes, God can heal, but he wants us to want our healing as much as we want him to want it, and community is part of wanting it. So if I want to be a better mom and I don't want to hurt my daughter with what hurt me, I can't heal myself. I know God wants to heal me, but God says move, participate. So that's why I go to therapy.
Yeah.
That's why I have mentors in my life. And that's why I have peers that I can be vulnerable and real with because I can't actually do it on my own. That's why I listen to podcasts. That's why I read books. That's why I read scripture because I can't actually heal myself, but I can participate in my own health.
11 years ago, I wrote a book called On Fire, and it's the story of getting burned. It's the story of recovery. It's a story of amputations and feeling less than and addicted and broke down and wasted. So, in going into the corners to do that right, you have to open up wounds that have been covered for a long time. And there was a night I remember specifically where my wife was out of town, maybe on a retreat, and it just was me. And I was just crying in bed, like, what the heck, man? Like, I haven't thought about this in years. Then
Mm-hmm.
years later, just a couple years ago now, we shot the film Soul on Fire. And there was a scene where they shoot at my mom and dad's actual house, the fire scene. And all these actors and 400 support staff, everybody's there just doing the job. For them, it's not very emotional. Just you're paid to say action and go to work, and a can of gasoline blows up, and oh, okay. But as I'm watching this, it just broke me open, totally gutted me again. You in your work Collide very clearly went back to the well and pulled back some old wounds. You dug a lot more out of the closet than just you and your daughter. It had to be hard to look that closely in the mirror and to become that self-aware again. So for
Mm-hmm.
you, as you went through that process of writing and ultimately sharing into a judgmental community, probably no one more judgmental than the one writing. I mean, we are so hard on ourselves. What was the hardest part of you for that process as you revisited the past?
Mm-hmm. Oh man. I mean, you get it. It was so like editing your trauma. Right? Like I worked with an editor before I went to a publishing house. So like it's like, oh, and then I go to a publishing house and then I'm editing. It's like not only did I have to write about these hard, traumatizing things, but then we're literally critiquing like the periods and the commas and the hyphens and like the choice of words or how many words or the order of the trauma. I think that was a really exhausting period of time in my life. Like, I think it was like a few years period where I was like, oh, I'm just rehashing trauma every single day at work. Like, it probably can't be super good for you. But at the same time, there were so many things that the writing process pulled out of me that I needed to experience. I mean, the book's probably 25 reiterations later of what it initially was. But at first, when I started writing about some of my pain, the stuff I wrote about my mom was so like hard and negative. And there's still some of that because addiction is ugly. But I had to actually and was pushed to actually start thinking about the
Yeah.
beautiful things about my mom. And that actually invited more grief out of me that I didn't know I had because I realized that this person who was beautiful that actually loved me hurt me. And that was like, oh, wow. When I actually started to be brave and write about how much I loved her and she hurt me, that was a whole new layer of grief that I had to work through. It's like, how does someone who loves you do this to you? You know, because like I wouldn't do this to my daughter. So, like, what am I supposed to do with that? So, there was definitely things in the writing process, and I'm sure you get it more than anyone where it's a lot.
Yeah, and I think the best writers who share their stories do so not for ego or book sales, but to help heal someone else. There was an old
Mhm.
spiritual writer named Henry Nouwen, and Nouwen wrote, "What is most personal and private is most universal and sacred." So the very things that you endured as a child that I can't fathom are the very things that connect most with me and my suffering, my struggle, my healing, and my hope. And the same is true in my work. And so the more we can be
Mhm.
really honest and really faithful in sharing our stories for others, the more it can drive them forward to become an even better version of themselves. So for those who encounter your work, whether it's through Collide or it's ministry, maybe your book, what do you hope they leave with after they collide with you? How do you hope they're better because of it?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, very simply, I hope that they do what I wanted my mom to do my whole life. I grew up my whole life wishing my mom would heal, wishing my mom would get better, wishing my mom would quit drinking. And she didn't say yes to that invitation because it would mean she would have to feel her pain instead of numb it. She never said yes to healing. And that pain and her numbing her pain hurt both of us tremendously. And she ultimately ended up dying from alcoholism. But I would want people to decide to say yes today to healing and health.
It's an odd question, but your mother passed away not long before the book came out, along with your father.
Mm-hmm.
Did it make releasing the book easier, knowing that the hurt they caused through omission and commission would not have to be read by them?
Absolutely. I struggled for so long. I knew I was supposed to write this book 20 years ago. And I couldn't figure out how do I tell my story when I have a mom who's an addict who is still in denial that she's an addict. How am I going to be real about that and throw her life under a bus? And she could give a flying rip about Jesus. So it was like, how am I going to not hurt her? And so it was so hard. And my dad, who has another family, and he had things that he didn't really want me to share. And so I think it was a really hard thing to go, well, how do I do this then? God was like, well, I just want you to show up to the blank pages and just put one foot in front of the other and write the book. I'll worry about when the book releases. And so I actually did that for the last 15 years. I just showed up to a book and wrote it. And what was crazy is what the book would have been 20 years ago is not what the book is now, because I think God wanted me to live story before I told
For
it. I
sure.
think there were things that happened that I hadn't experienced yet. Like my mom's passing is in the book, but I didn't know that was going to happen. Meeting the stepdad who abused me just a couple years ago, I never saw that as a chapter in my story, and it became a chapter in my story. And so there was an element of like this dance in the timing of when this would release. But I think anything that we're made to do with our lives, any way we're made to inspire other people, some of it is just the faithfulness of showing up, putting one foot in front of the other, little by little, being faithful with little, and you'll be given more and more and more. And so that's kind of what happened, is that I just showed up to blank pages, and then it ended up eventually becoming a book that was released probably in the timing that ultimately worked out the best.
I mentioned to you on the front side of the conversation before recording that I had like 40 questions plus 10 quotes to run by you from you. And I'm like, we won't get through any of it because I'm just going to kind of follow your lead as we dance. So I have gotten through almost none of my planned questions, but the conversation's gone exactly where it was supposed to, I think. And of the 10 quotes, I'm just going to ask you about one because I think a lot of us are here now. Like we're not here. So here we go. This is a quote from you. You don't need to be fully ready to move forward. You just need to be willing. So for those of us who are stuck, relationally, stuck financially, stuck spiritually, stuck in addiction, stuck in knowing that we can't have our lives used for good. Help us understand what you mean with that quote. You don't need to be fully ready to move forward. You just need to
Mhm.
be willing.
I mean, I think about this collision in the Bible where Jesus shows up to this guy who's been stuck for 38 years. I mean, that's almost 4 decades, man. And he hasn't moved. And he's waiting at this place where it was believed that when the waters stirred, the first person that got down to the waters would be healed. And so he's sitting there and he's complaining because other people get down there for the healing before he does, which of course, because he can't walk. And here he is, and he's still talking about this one thing he thinks is going to heal him. This one, like, he's fixated on the one thing. I think we get fixated on, like, oh, like if I just do the keto diet and lose 30 pounds, or if I just get an education, or if I just get a husband, or whatever it is, my life will be better. And this guy's no different.
Yeah.
We have to move. We have to do something that we haven't done before. We have to actually participate. And so if someone's stuck today, like instead of fixating on the one thing that you've been thinking is the thing that's going to make your life better, look to the healer, the one that's bigger than you.
Mm.
What is he telling you to do? What's one way you can move today? And then tomorrow, wake up and be like, what's one way I can move today? Like for someone, it could be like today, just take a shower. For someone else, it could be like today, do your freaking physical therapy exercises. For someone else, it's like call a therapist or confess to a friend. Your head space is not in a good place. What is one move you can make today? And then ask yourself the same thing tomorrow.
And then each time pick up your mat and move. Willow
Mhm.
Weston, author of Collide. We have 7 questions that tether all of our guests together. We're going to run through these right now. They're
That's
the
cool.
quick questions, quick answers. Let's roll. Number one, the most impactful book you've ever read.
Oh, I'm going to be so cheesy right now and say the Bible.
You were within the Bible. I think there's 66 books. What's your favorite book within the Bible?
Ooh, I love John.
I think I'm biased on that one, but I agree with you. What an audacious way to begin a book in the beginning. That's a pretty gutsy way to start your little book. So, way to go, John.
Mm.
What's one positive characteristic or one trait that you possessed as a child that you wish you exhibited as brilliantly today?
Trust in others.
If your home caught fire and all living things are out and you have an opportunity of running in and grabbing one item, what's that one thing you would return with?
Pictures? Probably my wedding photo album.
I grabbed the 30-year-old wedding album. I think that's a good one to grab. If you could sit on a bench on a gorgeous day and have a long conversation with anyone living or deceased, who would you like to be next to?
Can I say my family?
Yeah.
Definitely my husband and 2 kiddos.
What's the best advice your 2 kiddos, your husband, or anyone else has ever given you? So the best advice you've ever received is,
Honestly, I feel like who I am is a collection of all the people I've run into and all the experiences and wisdom I've received from all of those people. So I don't have one that stands out, but grateful for all of it.
that's perfect. So the final question, my friend, is this. It has been said that all great people can have their lives summed up in one sentence. Willow Weston, what's your one sentence? What's the one sentence you'd like to be remembered by?
I use my one life to point people to the only one who can heal us all.
Willow Weston, friend, wife, mother, daughter, healer, missionary. I want to thank you for using your one life to point others toward ultimately who can heal them and heal us all. It's been a great book. It's been a great journey, and I've enjoyed getting to know you on this podcast.
John, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for all that you do and all the ways you inspire us.
My friends, that is the story and the testimony of my friend. Now yours. Her name is Willow Weston. My name is John O'Leary. Today is our day. What a gift. Live with your soul on fire.
Well, my friends, Willow Weston shared some powerful thoughts and truths in our time together. I always try to take notes and write down a quote or two that deeply moves me. One of them that I wrote down today is that unresolved pain coming out sideways is hurting the people that we actually love the most. Isn't that intriguing? The pain that has not yet been redeemed is transmitted onto those that we love the most. So when we ignore what is beneath the surface, it doesn't just disappear. It shows up in our reactions, in our relationships, in our thoughts, in our words, and in the very way we move through the world. But the good news is healing is possible, and it starts by facing what we have been avoiding. If you enjoyed this conversation, I think you'll love the conversation I had a couple years ago with Christina Rasmussen. As an acclaimed grief educator, Christina shares the tools needed to heal from unacknowledged heartbreak, move forward from everyday grief, and embrace the life that you were meant to lead. You can listen to Christina on the Live Inspired podcast, episode 678. Or you can take the easy shortcut and cruise with me right now to the website, johnolearyinspires.com/podcast. Family, I appreciate you tuning in. I'm grateful for the gift of your life. I'm also grateful for the truth that the foundation is firm and the best is yet to come. So for this time and until next time, my name is John O'Leary. Today is our day. What a gift it is. Live with your soul on fire.
Keeley Companies was started almost 50 years ago by the one and only Larry Keeley. What started as a small family-owned paving company in St. Louis has grown to a nationally known full-service construction, development, and restoration partner. Larry the Legend, as he is affectionately known, has been a part of this growth every step of the way and continues to provide guidance as his son, Rusty, my buddy, drives their vision and achieves results on purpose. His unwavering foundation of a family culture with a focus on people has gotten Keeley Companies to where they are today, and their journey is truly just beginning. To learn more about Larry the Legend and Keeley Companies, check them out at KeeleyCompanies.com.